Hey folks, welcome to the second Splitstaff guide. So let's get right into it. Last time I talked about the importance of this weapon's mystic arts. Let me show them to you just in case you don't remember. And this was just to give you an idea of how to work with the weapons. So many attacks are going to have extended hits, which can allow great stagger potential and just keeping enemies locked in place. But of course there is the added ability to have certain attacks do greater damage because their range is extended. So you're going to constantly be working with these two elements in conjunction with all sorts of moves, which can make Splitstaff's moveset actually almost double what you see here. So it's a very complicated weapon, and is a weapon that is not as well understood for this very reason. But let's start talking about some of these abilities and what you can do and really to make yourself feel like a powerhouse. So I know I've talked about some of these abilities before, but let's just get through some of it again. I'm going to focus on Seesaw Strike for high stance. Seesaw Strike is just a good general bread and butter ability. It is surprisingly fast for a high stance ability, and what I tend to like to pair it with is an extended quick attack into Seesaw Strike. If the enemy's a little too far away, extend the range, and it's pretty good for that purpose. And so let me showcase how it can work against many human opponents with the extended high stance quick. Pretty sizable. Doesn't do the most key damage, but it does a lot of hits. And it's really not too slow once those hits get started. And due to the nature of its verticality, surprise surprise, it's going to be pretty reasonable at destroying yokai horns. So hitting horns is always a pleasure. Not bad, huh? So bear that in mind. Alright, come on. Just need to reset. Yeah, Seesaw Strike, can't go wrong with this ability pretty much whatsoever. Great ability. Next up, let's go with, I've already talked about ebb and flow in the last video, so that's actually something I won't talk about again, but just a brief reminder. The behavior of this changes depending on which stance you are. If you're in high or mid, you get extended range, and low stance, you get a bunch of extra hits. Roar power, pretty neat. There are quite a few things I'll talk about here. Roar power is long range hits, and depending on how long you charge it, you get a little extra range or a little bit more damage, which I talked about last time as well. But the most popular ability that I have seen being used is Dragon Dance. Dragon Dance is quite interesting. It is basically a big damage booster. I believe this does benefit from both mystic arts as well. And when you're out of key, when you're finished up with it, press square. You get a damage boost which does not conflict with other things. So let me get this guy out of key to prove that to you. Okay, come on. Alright, now, come on, just stay out of key, bud. Alright, here we go. Dragon Dance is very popular because it not only moves you forward, but does a whopping amount of damage. Oh, come on. So yeah, you move forward, and so many targets will just straight up get hit by this. Then when you run out of key as a result, Dragon Dance 2 can take effect and you get a unique damage boost. I forget the exact percentage, it might be like 10-20%, I'm not sure. But it's nice, it doesn't conflict, so definitely a good ability to spam if that is your thing. It's not mine, so I don't use it. Next up is, we've got quite a few options. I'm going to talk about Unruly Revolution. So this is quite a bit of a long animation ability, but with that it does a good amount of damage on its own. And against many opponents, even with this range extended. It's very similar to Switchglave's Empty Retribution, in which you hit a ton. The last hit does a good amount of damage as well. Not the most, but yeah. Keep an enemy stun locked with it. If they're a little too far away, hit them a bit more. It's definitely pretty cool for that endeavor. Alright, out you go. Out you go. Nap time. Alright. But there is also, oh, another thing, I believe this is actually pretty reasonable for applying elements, so let me just showcase it to you. It's okay. Oh, I guess it's not as impressive as I thought. But it'd probably be really good for keeping the elements up. So, if you have an element on a target, want to get a bunch of hits, well, what do you know? Unruly Revolution is your ability to work with. Bear in mind, I don't have any extra fire applications, so that's just base. It's okay. Twin Phoenix is quite interesting as well. Twin Phoenix isn't just as Unruly Revolution, not superb in terms of applying elemental applications. You do have two forms, but the extended versions, even though they do take a while, it's a lot of hits. Maybe it doesn't do the most damage, so it doesn't matter if you can't do squat. You can control which versions you want held down to extend them, so use that as useful information. Pretty cool. Yay! Also, you don't always have to go for full Twin Phoenix. Sorry, I'm just killing this guy so I can talk about it. What I tend to do is sometimes I just do a quick extended Twin Phoenix 1 because the key pulse window for it is remarkably fast. So what I like to pair it with is Side Splitter, Twin Phoenix 1. And you know, you just want that quick stun lock? Yeah, use it, absolutely. Can't go wrong with it. So you don't just focus on, holy cow, this takes like 5 minutes. If you can get that off, great, but just Twin Phoenix 1 alone is awesome. You can pair it with all sorts of other things. Like that. Like that, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that's a little faster than I expected. Like, yep, pretty cool. And if you just want to get that Twin Phoenix 3, just do the quick versions, go from there. But it really is up to you, and this does illustrate the complexity that's with the weapon. It's not so slow when you understand what to use and why. You don't always just want to go all out with every single ability, because there's a lot of animation time you must consider. I'll talk about Heron Kick when I get to mid-stance. Serpent Sweep. It's a little weird. Serpent Sweep does have a bit of a wind-up. It's actually a lot more than you might expect. Alright. So let me demonstrate this against Yoki just to illustrate that. Okay, let me start it at close range. Alright. And here we go. A little bit of a time before it gets going, which can really throw you off. So you might be better off starting it at range so you can keep going. And as you can see, it does consume a lot of ki, but it's still pretty reasonably powerful. My advice, though, would be to use it after a yokai ability. So for example, Aberrant Soldier, buffer the input, and then go. It doesn't feel as slow. Which is why I will again say, make sure you're using those yokai abilities, because they can really help make things feel a little faster. So yeah, there's Serpent Sweep. It does have a lot of verticality to it. It does it will hit horns and break them, but it consumes a lot of ki and it takes a bit of time to wind up. So keep that in mind as you mess with that ability. I have talked about Radiant Moon already, so I'm going to move past it, but in case you need a little refresher, you can extend the airtime and the range of the ability. So that's pretty cool. Let's talk about things in mid-stance now. So you can put Shin Crusher, and I've talked about it before. Whether you put Shin Crusher in mid or low stance is ultimately up to preference. I like it in low stance for the reason I talked about in the last video, but you can have it in mid stance as well. There's really no other difference besides just a little timing concerns, but I'll talk about that in a bit. And also, really, it's just what you're used to. I'm used to it in low stance, so of course I'm going to have trouble with it in mid stance. Fill the Void, as I talked about last time, is a good disengage. Pair it with abilities like Roar Power. Heck, pair it with abilities like Serpent Sweep. Can't really go wrong with it. And so it's pretty cool. And you can have that. Being able to control when you're in and out of combat is always awesome. Then talked about Ebb and Flow. Now we've got quite a few things to talk about here. So I've already talked about Roar Power. Changing Ways is an ability that I think is greatly misunderstood, especially after the nerf to it, but I still think it is absolutely bonkers amazing. Let's talk about, though, the parries before I get into each of these abilities. Docstopper is a little... Oops. Docstopper is a little weird. This is an ability that does work against yokai as well. And what's interesting is... And so it's kind of like Demon Thrust and whatnot. So let me showcase that. I'm going to try to get him to do a burst attack. And it works against any hit. But depending upon how long you hold the button down, you can get... Ah, it actually worked on the first hit. Depending on how long you hold the guard down, you get extra hits, and so it can feel a little weird. Let me try to demonstrate this against a burst attack. And so it's just kind of weird with the timing. It'll feel like with the hold version, you need to get the parry off a little sooner. But let's see if that applies to the hold version. Like it. Come on. Oh yeah, that's right. They actually improved it. So as long as you time it right, you can decide if you want the quick fire or the hold. And what is this timing? It's standard parry timing. In other words, same timing as burst counters for Phantom. Yeah, that's right. They improved it because before it was a little wonky. So you can decide. Do I want to go for the extra hits or no? Or do I just want to use the attack normally? The timing is generous if you get the block off, but not so much if you don't. Definitely pretty cool in that it works against burst attacks as well. Come on, burst attack please. Oh, that's fine. Showcase it one more time. So as long as it connects, just hold triangle and you get the extra hits. I was going for it. But yeah, the animation time is naturally going to be a bit longer because you are getting extra hits. Cool ability, kind of hard to use, but the fact that it works against burst attacks may be interesting if you play a kind of heavier armor tanky character who can withstand a lot of key damage. But let's talk about an ability... Oops, wrong weapon altogether. Let's talk about an ability that I think is greatly misunderstood. So I'll talk about Seesaw Strike when I get to low stance, but Changing Ways is what I've been using. Changing Ways got nerfed in that its damage output was reduced, and I think its anima gain was reduced as well. But when many players were using it, it was just like spam it over and over again, and it does a lot of hits, and it does all the damage, yada yada yada. And that's great. But Changing Ways, if it isn't obvious, the reason why I love it is because you literally jump in the air. One of the few abilities that can avoid all sorts of attacks. Now, one thing I want you to pay attention to, oh god dang it, I can't do it quickly enough, is how quickly upon activation I leave the ground. Alright? And look how long I stay there too. Then I get the hits off, alright? Now the thing is, if you extend it, you don't extend the air time. You extend the hits afterward. Alright, that's normal. Maybe there's a little extended air time, but most of the stuff is going to be noticeable upon landing where you do a lot of extra hits. So why do I like this ability so much? Well, it's near instant air time. So against enemies like Yasha or Suiki, you know, you go for a grapple on them, you can go for an extended hits on them. Usually, depending upon if I grappled them after let's say I do a Yokai Shift grapple on them. So then what I do, because for whatever reason the Yokai Shift grapple, you don't have as much time to respond for whatever reason. But right after that, just pop Changing Ways. Completely safe. Completely safe. Or against, say, a Nuriona, the same thing. It's completely safe. That blew my mind away. So think about it. You can avoid attacks that would hit you on the ground with Changing Ways, and then punish them for going for something like that, which a bunch of hits. And they improve the key damage of this ability, so it's not entirely that bad. So yeah, it's a great way to dodge and attack at the same time in style. So I love this ability. and I think it should not be underestimated. You use this to its potential, it feels good. Unfortunately, I don't have enemies that will take advantage of that, but that will allow me to demonstrate how cool that is, but it's pretty cool. Let me see if maybe I can get it off on the Yoki Burst from some distance away. Not sure if that'll be possible. I don't think it will be. I mean, yeah, you can hit some horns. Come on. Don't really want to use it to leap over opponents. It's not really meant for that. It's just kind of avoid attacks. Come on. Okay, dude, whatever. I don't think I'll be able to showcase it anyway. But yeah, avoiding attacks near instantly is so huge. Don't underestimate that whatsoever. Alright, next up we have mid-stance stuff. I've already talked about this. I'll talk about Side Splitter in a bit. And then there's Heron Kick. This is a great gap closer, and it feels so satisfying to nail it against all sorts of human opponents. The key damage and naturally the damage isn't necessarily the best, but dude, that's awesome. And what's cool about it is that while the ability is going off, you are actually regenerating some ki. So yeah, definitely allows all sorts of pressure plays. And if you extend, you get extra range. I guess it does do an okay amount of ki damage. I guess I'm just comparing it to Shane Crusher. The tracking can be a little weird. So sometimes you can, like, if you go for the extended version, sometimes you can just dart past enemies. I'm not able to do that right now because I guess I've trapped him in a corner. This is just cheap. So sometimes you may just want to go for the quick version, because the extra version might give you extra hits. Do the same damage. 32. Okay. So let's see if it's the same damage with extra hits. I guess it is. Sure. Kinda neat, huh? So definitely a lot of fun. Heron Kick is great. A good gap closer. So any enemies that back away, boom. Decide how far you want to travel. And there's a difference between extending that. Get those multiple hits off. It definitely feels extra spicy to be able to do that. Definitely a monk type of ability, and I'm glad that they added it in. So I'm sure you'll have fun with that. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm not using Unruly Revolution, is simply because I enjoy Heron Kick that much. It is awesome. Okay, and then I believe the last thing in mid-stance, if I'm not mistaken, is Deft Counter. Deft Counter is actually, I think, the most generous parry in the game. While it's occurring, you will regenerate ki. Let me demonstrate. You can basically do it on reaction. Oh, I'm doing it too early. You generally don't want to be too early. You can afford to be late, though. That's the crazy thing. You can afford to be late, and as you can see, they're reeling from a knockback as well. They have a lot of free time to set all sorts of things up. Come on. Showcase one thing I can do with it. It is basically phantom timing, but I would say you can be even later. You can set up a roar power right after. Then, you know, you can do whatever the hell you want from there. You regenerate ki during it. The ki pulse window for it is quite strange. Don't know why that's the case, but I imagine what you can do is, while they're recoiling, is use a yokai ability instead and make yourself feel extra spicy. So yeah, pretty neat. Whee! Yeah, Def Counter, you'll find you're like, whoa, I got away with it. It's like, yeah, you did it at the last possible moment. You couldn't get away with it, and it feels extra awesome. So definitely a big fan of the ability. And what's crazy is actually, I think on my Switchglaive, sorry, not my Switchglaive, my Splitstaff, you can temper ki recovery bonus for Def Counter as well. So yeah, definitely an ability that helps you manage your ki in a weird sort of way. So pretty neat. But let's talk about the other things that this weapon has, and I think I might save Shin Crusher for last because it's the main timing-based ability. Let's see what is left. So we have Shapeshift Strike, which is a little strange. Don't get me wrong. It is a lot of hits. That is not Shapeshift Strike. It is a lot of hits, and depending on the version you choose, you can get extra range with it as well. My advice would be to use this mostly to keep enemies stun locked. It's not half bad for a quick little reposition. As you can tell, your character moves slightly, so that can be of value to you, but I wouldn't really depend upon that. I've had the good fortune of moving, but like just out of the way of the attacks, but for me, it's pretty much just like, hey, I want to keep a target in place and get those hits off. So it can feel pretty spicy to do that. Neat, huh? Yeah, it's 5 hits. But bear that in mind. 5 hits? You'd think it'd be a lot more. It is 5 hits, right? I'm not losing my mind. Yeah, it's 5 hits. Alright. Pretty cool. I like to use it as part of zero key combos. I think you will too. So next we have Side Splitter. Side Splitter has differing behavior, which depends upon which stance it is in. In mid stance you get extra range, in low stance you get extra hits, which is pretty cool. So move to the side is a pretty simple ability. If you don't extend it, just a hit, and it'll come out faster, which I guess is kind of neat. Of course, if you go for the extra hits, the damage does get split. So bear that in mind as well. But again, dagger lock is a thing, and what I think is really remarkable, so I know I talked about this evasion cancels that I talked about in one of the earlier videos. Evasion cancels, low stance, side splitter, especially extended, is pretty crazy. You just do that and enemies cannot respond. I mean, look at this. You consume a lot of ki, but it's pretty ridiculous. And so what I like to do is I like to pair Twin Phoenix with Side Splitter. Oh, whoops. Twin Phoenix into a Side Splitter feels pretty good, especially in low stance. If you want the mid stance range, which I will demonstrate now, go for it. Again, it really is just a matter of preference. Because there's a lot of range to that. Holy cow, that's a whopping amount of range. So you may want that range instead. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Let me just show you. That's like, I mean, I could be a lot farther, couldn't I? What the heck? And of course, it's not nearly as slow as the low stance version might feel. Like, that's pretty silly. So, try out which one you prefer. Maybe you'll like the range. Maybe you'll like the hits like I do. It really is just a matter of preference. And you can kind of have both if that's what you like. But I personally just use it in low stance since that's what I'm most comfortable with. But it may not be your thing. But let's see what else is left. I think that's pretty much it when it comes to Splitstaff main abilities, excluding Shin Crusher. So last time I said not to worry about the timing element of it for the extra versions. So I wanted to educate you on how to do that. So my advice, just to kind of get a feel for the different versions. So there are different versions. All right, so you've got Failed version 2, which has extended range by default. This is what you get. You get extra hits into extra range. and there is a correct timing element of it. Now here's how I like to work with that timing element. So I have Shin Crusher in low stance, and one thing I would like you to practice is trying to get the extended hits for all the low stance quicks. Do that right, and once you figure that out, you'll have a serious edge in being able to figure out Shin Crusher 2 perfect extended range timing. So try that out first. And once you get those buttons sequenced together and you're like, okay, I got a nice rhythm going, use that same rhythm in order to do perfect Shin Crusher 2. It'll take some practice, but it's significantly easier than just trying to figure it out on your own. And it's pretty awesome. You don't always have to go for the extra ranged version. You can just go for the faster version. And that'll just feel more like a standard button press, say, compared to abilities like God of Wind. But yeah, for the extended range version, try the low stance, try to get those three things together, and you'll notice that even I have a little difficulty doing so. But I've noticed when I've been consistent with that, with the holds for each part, it feels a lot cleaner to go for it. Otherwise, you'll mess up like I did there. So try this. And I think you'll have a serious edge. I still have trouble with Shin Crusher 2. Once you get comfortable with something, it's not too bad. But I know for me, I'm very comfortable with doing it after low stance dodge attack. I guess I'm screwing up right now. Wow, I really am. Maybe I need to be in combat. Maybe that will help me. Yeah, I think that was just the difference. I need to kind of pay attention. Pretty cool, huh? Let's go. So yeah, try that out for size. Shin Crusher 2 will take some time, but again, the bulk of the key damage just comes from extended Shin Crusher 1. And when you got extended hits, it hits like a beast. So I'm surprised that my runtime for this video is actually shorter than the Switchblade stuff, but I guess it's because I don't have as much complexity with each individual move. It's just situational awareness for when you want to go extended range or when you want extended hits, and then you decide what skill customizations work best. So that is really going to be up to you, and you can see my own customization. One other thing I did want to mention, and I forgot to put this in the last video. You know how I talked about the mid stance stuff, dodge attacks for strongs, and how you can attack like right away with other things? So I actually learned that what you can do is with low stance, if you do the low stance extended quick dodge, man, that's a mouthful. You can sequence other attacks into it as well, but not just standard, because the key pulse window for the extended dodge is actually fairly quick. You can attack right after. You can purposely fail the key pulse for the low stance extended quick dodge. Oh my god, that's a mouthful. So you can do that and sequence into other things if you're okay with taking the key loss. Pretty cool. I've been using it a bit more. I think the one I prefer the most is probably this. The low stance dodge. Sorry, mid stance, strong dodge, and then attack whichever way I want. Pretty neat. Or you can do mid stance dodge into like a strong attack, into Radiant Moon, or whatever else. It is pretty cool. Also, one thing I wanted to mention that I don't think I touched the last time was that so you can actually do Fill the Void. Even though I have Fill the Void in mid stance only, you can actually do it from both high and mid stance. It's kind of weird. So do a high stance attack, pre-shift into mid, and then just press Fill the Void. Pretty neat. It's weird. So you can do mid stance Fill the Void, or high stance. High stance Fill the Void. So you don't actually need to assign Fill the Void to high stance ever if you're comfortable with it being in. Strange. I am though very curious to see, if it'll work if I have Fill the Void in mid stance and low stance. Yeah. So wherever you put Fill the Void, just swap to that stance and then pop it, and then you'll be able to do it. Kind of neat. Just food for thought. Like, maybe you'll use it. I do use it, actually, if I want a quicker disengage than, say, the mid-stance version. It just depends on what I'm feeling. Pretty cool. So let me now demo what it's like to play Splitstaff in a nice, powerful way that just decimates your opponents, using what I know personally. Let's keep him stagger locked. Using input buffers to do whatever I please. Oh, come on, I'm screwing up my inputs. That's fine. Not really a big deal, huh? Sure, close enough, right? Let's try it again on a Yoki. Abuse my range. Ah, kicked your horn. Ah, try again, it's okay. Oh yeah, get all those hits off. Oh, reposition, what's up, boy? Can't touch me, can you? Don't forget, yokai abilities are your friend. Aw, I screwed up my low stance shenanigans. What else do I got? Hey, try and hit me, man. Try and hit me. That's right, you can't. Yeah, you can't. Sucks to be you. Any case, hopefully that was educational when it comes to what you can do with the Splitstaff. Hopefully you have a lot of fun making sure enemies basically can't do anything. And with a couple of tricks, I think you'll find that Splitstaff is a lot better than perhaps mainstream gaming audience suggests. So I'll leave it at that, and thank you so much for watching. Hope this video was helpful, and I will see you guys next time.